All right, are we ready to roll?
Yes.
Okay. All right, good afternoon, everybody. Hi. I am opening the April 2, 2024 Landmark Preservation Commission meeting. Welcome to everybody here and joining us virtually. We always begin our meetings. Oh, it is 1 o'clock, according to my Swiss Army watch. And so generally we start by introducing ourselves, the commissioners here at the table. I'll start with myself. I'm Julie Johnson. I'm a historic preservation project manager, and I was nominated by the community at large. Larry, can you take it away?
I'm Larry Sykes. I'm an architect, and I was nominated by History Colorado.
I'm Nick Fusianis. I'm an architect and developer, and I was nominated by the American Institute of Architects.
Hello, I'm George Dennis, retired law enforcement, nominated by History Colorado.
I'm Graham Johnson, Preservation Project Manager, nominated by the Denver Planning Board.
And I'm Brittany Bryant, Denver Landmark Preservation staff.
All right, before we go any further, for those of you joining us virtually, there are a few audio tips that we can share with you. Number one, for better sound quality, we strongly encourage you to download Zoom if you haven't already on your laptop, desktop, tablet, or mobile device. You can click on the audio settings to bring up an additional menu, add a background noise suppression. You can test your speaker and microphone and adjust their maximum output volumes. Number two, for presenters or public commenters, when it is your turn to speak, to mute or unmute, you can click on the microphone icon at the bottom of your screen. Expanding the menu next to the microphone will reveal additional options. Select your speaker and microphone devices, test your microphone and speakers, and you can adjust their maximum output volumes. And number three, if you still have audio challenges, you can switch to phone for audio. Alrighty, then moving on with the meeting with the agenda. We have no meeting records for approval this time. So let's go on to our public comment period. We reserve time at the beginning of every meeting for the public comment period, where members of the public have up to 2 minutes each for comments about historic preservation in general. This does not include comments associated with specific projects that we'll be reviewing later. To speak, those of you virtually, you can click your hand raise button in Zoom. You can dial *9 on your keypad to raise your hand if joining by phone. Or you can email landmark@denvergov.org and use the what option?
It's *9.
*9. Oh, *9 on your keypad to raise your hand if joining by phone. Landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number if you're having difficulty with either of the hand raise options. I'll start with the group assembled here today. Anybody want to make a general comment about historic preservation? Okay. Okay, nobody here. Oh, I thank you. Nobody here in person. Is there anyone out there in the virtual world that would like to make a 2-minute comment? Is that, I see Keith. Okay. Keith, when you're ready.
Are you there, Keith?
Are we having trouble admitting him?
No, I mean, he has permission to talk.
Okay. Keith? This is where,
Lower his hand.
this is where we have to do the seance thing. Can you hear us?
His hand is still up. It's just because I'm hovered over it.
Oh.
Maybe move on to Ellie.
Yeah,
and then we'll come
let's
back
try
to Keith.
Ellie, yeah. For some reason it's not working. We'll come back to you, Keith, in a minute.
Yeah, a lot of the buttons aren't. Can you hear me now, actually?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. I mostly got on because none of the controls that you said are working. And so when it comes to public comment, I'm actually in the Zoom app and nothing is showing up for us to make anything. So I just want to let you guys know, be aware of that.
Okay. Okay, Ellie, can we get your name and address, please, for our records?
Yeah, it's Eileen Feltman, 2534 Arapahoe Street, Denver, 80205.
Okay, great, thank you.
And just for clarity, we do see your hand raise button, which is what we ask when you're in the Zoom app. If you're on your phone, you push *9. If you're having any other issues, you can email us at landmark@denvergov.org and we'll move you over appropriately.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, great. All right, so Keith, we're gonna try again. Oh, now he's gone. He disappeared.
Okay, he just ported over
There he
as a panelist, so he might. Keith, did you still want to talk?
Internet sometimes spotty, I think.
Oh, there's-
Keith, you should be able to unmute yourself and start your video.
There we
If you
go.
want to.
Sorry about
There
that.
we go. Oh,
Can
that's
you-
okay,
Can you
Keith.
hear me now? Okay,
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great.
Thank you.
great. Sure. Thank you so much. Keith Pryor here, 2418 Champa Street. Just wanted to thank Brittany for all of her hard work on the ADU design guideline updates. The last couple of public meetings have been great, receiving public feedback and getting these design guidelines updated. And so just wanted to put out kudos to Brittany and the Landmark staff for really putting together a really nice program, and also update to the code, which is definitely needed to get some better perspective on ADUs, which are very common in Curtis Park. And we have a fair number that have been going through the process. And so it'll be nice to have the design guidelines to further shape discussion and have in place. So just wanted to say thank you to Brittany and staff for all their hard work. And that was it. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Keith, thank you very much. All right, is there anybody else that, I don't see any other hands raised?
No.
Okay, then moving on. So normally we have a consent agenda. Do we have a thing that? We don't need to read it. I don't need to read it.
don't have an actual consent.
Yeah, so we do not have a consent agenda, any consent agenda items today, so we will simply move on to the design review projects. And I do have a thing to read about that. I will announce the design review items on our agenda in order by address, and there are 3 design review items today. Commission members will announce any ex parte contacts or conflicts of interest. The staff will introduce the application and make a recommendation. Commissioners can question the staff. The applicant will then have a chance to give their presentation, and they are limited to 10 minutes, and you come up to this table when it's your turn. Public comment comes after the applicant's presentation, and each person from the public will be allowed 2 minutes per person to give that presentation. All right, that's okay. I should think I would have it memorized by now. If you would like to speak regarding a specific project and you are not part of that applicant team, please click the hand raise button on your Zoom program. And for those calling via phone, dial *9 to raise your hand. If you're having difficulty with either hand raise option, you can always email landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number. The staff will have a chance to clarify if necessary. The commission will go into deliberation, and then the commission will make a motion and vote. All right. Also, the LPC can only consider information that's included in the application materials on the LPC meeting website. So it's something that everybody has had a chance to see if they wish. So our first item on our design review projects today is 2024-COA-168 at 3134 Champa Street in Curtis Park, and Jessie White is our staff person. Jessie.
All right, so this is 3134 Champa Street. It was constructed in 1886 and is a contributing 1-story Queen Anne structure in the Curtis Park Historic District. The primary structure on the lot is very simple symmetrical gable roof with brick cladding all the way up. 3138 Champa Street and 3130 Champa Street are sister single-story Queen Anne cottages that flank 3134. The applicant is proposing an ADU structure here, and it will be a 2-story ADU structure. Just wanted to give you some larger street context so that you can understand visibility. So the applicant is proposing to demolish an existing one-story garage at the back of the lot and is proposing to construct a two-story ADU in its place. Staff is recommending denial of this application, citing guidelines 4.18, 4.19, 4.20, and 5.17. And I'll spend the next few slides going over staff's findings and their proposal for denial. So before moving on, I did want to point out, share a few images of the existing garage to be demolished. And you can also see it in this plat map here, or plan here. And just wanted to note that secondary structures in the Curtis Park Historic District are not contributing to the overall historic district. So demolition of this one-story garage that looks like it's been quite mucked with over the years is supported by staff. So pictured at the top of the slide is the proposed site plan. The ADU will be 19 feet by 38 feet 9 inches with garage access off the alley. The ADU will be situated behind that primary structure, but we'll have some visibility as it will be a two-story structure behind a one-story primary structure with flanking one-story structures on either side. And I included that street view at the bottom of the screen so you could see there is an evergreen tree there, but staff and the commission in the past has not considered vegetation as like long-term screening. Trees die and there may be some visibility there. So staff does feel that the placement of the ADU does meet guideline 4.18, but we do have concerns over subordination and compatibility. And I'll get on to into that on the next few slides. So here quickly are the proposed floor plans and roof plans for the ADU. I'll just give a few seconds here to take a look at those. Oh, looks like one of my slides was, oh, never mind, excuse me. So the applicant has included several examples of mansard roof primary structures as well as a range of historic secondary structures in their application materials. These examples show that many secondary structures in the district don't match the form of the primary structure. But that being said, in these cases, the secondary structures do relate to the forms of other secondary structures in this historic context. Historic carriage houses in this district typically have simple boxy or rectangular footprints with gable roof, cross gable, or hip roof forms that relate to other secondary structures in that surrounding context. The applicant did not include any examples of secondary structures in this district with mansard style roofs. There are several primary structures in this district that have mansard roof, but to my knowledge, there aren't any historic mansard roof style secondary structures in this district. So staff feel that the proposed mansard roof ADU reads more as a primary structure, and it competes with that very simple primary structure that's on the lot already with the simple gable roof. Staff recommend that the proposed form be simplified so that it better fits the primary structure or it better fits the surrounding secondary, historic secondary structures in this district. There are additional example photos that are in the application materials, and those you can review on your own. So staff is, I don't know why it skipped over. I thought I had elevation plans, but apparently it left those out. Brittany, can we bring up the elevations?
I'm not seeing them in here, but the
Yeah.
slides are really out of order, Jesse.
Perhaps.
I don't know what happened there. Do you want me to pull up the plans?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
1 second.
Apologies, everyone.
It's okay, if you just give us approval, okay.
you for doing that, Brittany. Yep. Appreciate it.
Sorry for the delay here.
No, it's all right.
You okay?
Just wing it. We'll go on the fly here.
Might not be the first time.
This is the streetscape. It's a photo of the streetscape. That's the rendering with the ADU. And keep going. Here are some elevations. Okay. So the structure will be a mansard roof structure. It will have racing metal roofing material. It will have aluminum clad wood, or excuse me, the window material is not called out, and the door material, I believe, is not called out as well. They will have summit brick in the color ebony for the west elevation. That brick will wrap the corners of the ADU, and then the rest of the ADU wall surface will be clad in 3-coat stucco. There was some missing information on the proposed lighting for the ADU structure. And staff did want to just underscore that all lighting, all exterior lighting must be full cut off. So staff is recommending denial of the application, citing the following. The proposed ADU fits the typical placement and orientations found in the historic district, citing guideline 4.18. The mansard roof form is not compatible with a primary roof form and does not fit with other secondary structures, structural roof forms found in the district, guideline 4.19. The proposed window and door feature proportions, rhythms, and operation types that fit the context. However, the applicant will need to provide material information before a COA can be issued. Additionally, the sliding doors on the west elevation are not contextual and will have visibility from the street, citing guideline 4.20. The proposed lighting is simple and contextual. However, the applicant will need to accurately show the fixtures in the drawings and will need to provide materials information for all fixtures on the materials page, citing guideline 5.17. So staff would like to note that the RNO did provide comment that is included in the packet. We had additional public comment that was included in the packet. And then I followed up with 2 separate emails with public comment on this project. So let me know if you did not receive that. My computer has been squirrely this week. And hopefully that wraps this up for you all. Wish my slides would have come through.
That's okay, Jesse. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Jesse? And I did get the comments. Did everybody get the, okay.
Yeah, just one question, just so that I'm clear, I think I get it, but is it the case that staff don't necessarily have an objection to the height, just the sort of roof form and
Right, so guideline 4.19 talks about having, and 4.18 talk about having a structure that it blends in with the context, and it also relates to that primary structure. In this case, the applicant's done a great job of showing how the primary structure and the secondary structure don't always match, but there is some relationship to other secondary structures in the district. Staff's recommendation is based off of 4.18 and 4.19, basically saying that this is a very complex, it's a lovely design, but it's a very complex design that would be better fit for a primary structure rather than a secondary structure.
okay.
And we feel like it competes with that primary structure that's very simple in form.
Any other questions for Jesse? Okay, great. Jesse, thank you. Applicants. Are the applicants here?
Yep. Great.
Hi.
Hi.
Come on up. You'll have 10 minutes to tell us about your project and we can start with you. Please.
Should be on as well.
Okay. Oh, so we have somebody virtually as well. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, hello again, commissioners, we meet in the same place. And appreciate your time today. And I'll go ahead and get started. I'll just address some of the stuff that Jesse's brought up. First off, I don't think we can get too much more simplified on it. We have stripped down quite a bit from our first design. We made some changes to some of the comments that staff had made with lengthening the windows and getting those proportions a little bit better, which we completely agreed with. We removed some of the decorative detailing that we had on there as well. Now I know that the front house is super simple. We can't really do anything about that. But I'm not sure any two-story ADU behind will make it read less like a primary structure. And as you can see by some of the other ADUs in the neighborhood that are two-story behind single-story, that was in our packet as well. So it is common, and it's hard to not have it feel like that just because of the size. So being that the ADU resides in the rear 35% of the lot does make it a subordinate building. It also has a smaller footprint than the house. I know the house is small, but it is smaller than the house. The form is a modern reflection of the rhythms and patterns of Curtis Park Historic District. And we acknowledge there may no longer be existing original Curtis Park carriage houses that have this form. We feel like the design does relate to the surrounding historic district, expresses its true age through the use of materials, and a simplified modern interpretation of the historical form. If you actually take a step back and look at the building, it is a very basic box with minimal detailing, and the reduced roof mass will make it feel smaller next to the single-story homes. We do have a giant ADU a couple doors down, 997 square foot, two-story with a big Queen Anne on the front of that as well. And to the other sides of these smaller single-story Queen Annes, there is another two-story house. So it is mixed on that block with different size buildings. We did have sliders on there because there's just no room for swing either in or out. And that's why those were put on there. The way they're tucked into that kind of Juliet opening there, they're going to be very hidden. You won't be able to tell. They're going to look like windows. And there was actually sliders approved recently. I think 2914 California Street recently had some approved. I think that's basically all that I've got. I know we got some missing details that I need to get to Jesse, lights and whatnot. We had a non-full cutoff light that was on there, so we're going to change that out. And those windows are all weather shield, wood, aluminum clad, and we'll get those details to her. I think that's about all that I've got. We ask that you do approve this because we feel like the ADU does fit into the historic district. We do have support from Curtis Park neighbors, and we ask for your full approval today. I'm ready for questions after Jess takes her time.
Okay, can we get your name and address?
Oh, yeah, Jeff Baker, 2422 Champa Street.
And then did the owner want it to, is the owner on, Tana?
She's promoted, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, would you like to?
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, my name is Tess Hollingsworth. I'm the owner of 3134 Champa Street. We purchased this home in 2016, and we loved the neighborhood. Obviously, the neighborhood has dramatically evolved since 2016 and has continued. Kind of the purpose of our design and the reason that we wanted to go with something that was a little more astute than what we currently have on the front of the house was because we felt it actually contributed more to the neighborhood, because it is on the park and it is visible, and we wanted it to be beautiful and functional. Ultimately, the notion that it competes with the design in the front is tough for us because we actually feel it's very complementary. And when it's finished, we expect it to be very beautiful and really more of a statement of how the neighborhood is continuing to evolve from 1886 when the home was built. So thank you for your time.
Sure, of course. All right, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for our applicants?
I had one question.
Sure.
The sliding doors and the way that the cornice and gutter and everything come together, they're set back. And you've got that at 3 feet, but is that kind of you're anticipating that as your guardrail also? There's no protection or anything in front of those sliding doors like a Juliet balcony?
Correct, yeah. I mean, I think we could add railings, and maybe that's something that comes up.
I just wanted to make sure, I was gonna say, yeah, from a code compliance perspective, that there wouldn't be an aesthetic
I think it looks better without it, but
You bet. Fair enough. Thank you for clarifying.
Any other questions for the applicants? Doesn't look like it. Thank you very much. Be careful. Have a seat. Alrighty, then we will open public comments on this project. For those of you who are here that wish to comment, just raise your hand and you can make your comment here at the table. For those of you joining us virtually, you can click on the hand raise button in Zoom, or you can dial, I'm having trouble saying, dial *9 on your keypad to raise your hand if joining by phone. Or you can email us at landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number if you are having difficulty with either hand raise option. And everybody will have up to 2 minutes to provide their comments. And at the beginning of those 2 minutes, please state your name and address for our records. And we'll start with anyone here assembled here in the room if somebody would like to make a comment. Is there anyone joining us? Nope, doesn't look like it. Okay, great. Then let's go virtually. Keith, looks like you're first up. Hello, Keith.
Hi, thanks again. Keith Pryor, 2418 Champa Street, Chair of the Curtis Park Design Review Committee. We did review this and the majority of members felt that it was a subordinate structure. Per our letter that we sent in, we did have discussion about how to make this less visible from the street. And one of our concerns was visibility from the street, given the primary structure. And so we were wanting to have like street front elevations before we fully supported this project. I think the applicant has done a good job on looking at roof alternatives to minimize that impact. And the mansard roof does do a mass reduction on that second story that works well. A hipped roof would do well as on this as well, but a pitched roof, which is what the primary structure is, would be dwarfed by a 24-foot roof with the proper pitch that would fit within the historic context. So I'd like to hear Commission's comments and discussion around massing reduction and how to make this less impactful for the primary structure. And I think that this roof kind of accomplishes that out of all the other roof options that are available. But it is in the rear 24 or the rear 35 cent back. So again, it'll minimize that impact of the visibility. It is great that they're doing brick on the front because it will be visible. The sides are stucco, which we do have somewhat of a concern. That is not a common material, but we typically look at lap siding that's smooth. And then the last piece is Jeff, who's ADU for You, is my neighbor, but I have no direct connection with this project. He has started this business after he became my neighbor, and just wanted to disclose that. But those are our comments from Curtis Park neighbors. So I look forward to the discussion. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Keith. All right, we have one other person. Okay, Ashley? And then Ellie has raised her hand. Okay, great. Okay, so our next person is Ashley, is that right? Are you there? Hello? Hello, can you hear us?
She's just switching over.
Is she not unmuted? Not yet.
Ashley, you should be able to unmute yourself.
I think, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh.
You'll have 2 minutes to give your comment, and please start with your name and address.
Yes, my name is Ashley Albright. I am at 818 32nd Street. I am about 4 doors up the alley from this project, so I'm very familiar with it. I don't know the applicant at all, but I am requesting that this application be denied. I am in majority support with the staff's information, and it should be denied because the form and the roof are not compatible with and subordinate to the original structure and the historic context as is dictated by 419. This is a block of twins, and there are 3 sets of twins in that block. This cottage is one of the two sets of twins, identical cottages. There are two more of a different form on the north end of that block. And that's kind of historically significant for this block of Curtis Park. In order for this form to be compatible with and subordinate to the historic primary structure and adjacent structures, it needs still to be dramatically simplified in form. It reads as under 419, supposed to be obviously both compatible with and subordinate to the historic structure and the surrounding, particularly with designing the mass, form, and roof shape. It reads as a primary historic structure. It is overbearing of the adjacent identical cottages and other houses in this block. It appears older than the front house, not a new build of 2024, which can carry it into the future. And it is dwarfing of the little cottages beside it. So with that height difference, I would request denial of this form as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Right at 2 minutes. Well done. And we and we have another person that would like to join us. And this is Ally.
It seems to be taking a second to promote them to the panelist.
I'm an Aries. I want things to happen right away.
Right now.
Yeah.
Our fire sign feels your fire sign.
Yeah.
That's because they have to accept it. It's very
It's
slow.
okay. It's okay. Oh, calm down. I had coffee this morning.
Hello, are you there?
We are here. Yeah, we can
Oh,
hear you.
good. Okay, yeah, there is
Yeah.
a delay in any of the, after you hit attendee or whatever it is, there's a delay in when the buttons open up for me to
Yeah,
respond.
there is a delay. Sorry about that. If
Okay.
you could begin your 2-minute comment with your name and address, and we'll keep track of the time for you, so you can begin anytime.
Okay, Eileen Feltman, 2534 Arapahoe Street. Thanks. I've been a longtime resident. I have formerly served on the CPN board and on our landmark committee, so I am well aware. Oh, and I've done the trainings through Landmark, so I'm well aware of how to interpret some of these guidelines. On this particular matter, I tend to side with the recommendations of the staff. I do, well, I recognize, so I live in a smaller home also. So I do recognize there is a need, well, to retain the integrity of our smaller homes, that we do have some variability allowed for our ADUs, and many of that times means that those ADUs will be taller. However, in this particular case, I think the mansard roof is not appropriate. I think more of a simple symmetrical gable roof, or a simple symmetrical gable, or what's the other one? Yeah, you know what's the other one called? Anyway, I'm having a brain freeze. But a more simple roof form, even on that larger one, 2 doors down at 3142 Champa, even though it's quite large, it's a very simple roof form. And I understand maybe the reason they wanted to go for that to reduce massing, but I think what it does is it makes it read like a primary structure. And so I would suggest that this particular design not be approved, and we go back to more of a simple symmetrical roof style. And then also, as far as I appreciate the brick in the front facing the street, although I would request that they are more consistent with the lap siding, the simple smooth lap siding that we have asked the majority of other ADU residents to put into theirs. And the other thing would be, I would be objection to sliding glass doors facing the alley, with the exception if they gave the appearance of regular doors and had the regular, whether they were like a nano door or
Okay,
something. That
I'm
doesn't
sorry,
get the appearance.
your 2 minutes is up. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Appreciate everybody giving your comments. Anybody else? I don't see any other hands. Okay, great. All right, commissioners or staff, do you have any?
I was just gonna underscore, staff is not opposed to the height. There is a conservation overlay in this district that does allow for additional height for ADU structures. Our concern is mostly over the form and it competing with that simple roof form on the primary structure and not being compatible with other secondary structure roof forms in the district.
All right, commissioners, any questions for staff? Deliberation. Alrighty, then let's go into deliberation now. What are your thoughts?
Jump in.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I commiserate with the applicants for the kind of dual challenge of trying to make this compatible with the house, but also I understand the desire to try and reduce the mass, where, you know, we see all the time with these one-story primary structures. That's always a challenge. But yeah, I agree with the staff that just the very specificity of this roof form will actually, I think, counter the goal of trying to reduce the visibility of this ADU. And yeah, and then I also, on the topic of the sliding doors, I would also, I think that's an important detail that I agree with staff that, you know, street facing sliding doors are, especially when this will be visible over the one-story building, is important to not do those.
Okay, all right. Yes, George?
The whole laundry list of other objections could be solved with conditions, with the exception of the domination of the ADU over the primary structure. I have to support staff on that one. And everything else could be a condition and we could just rock and roll, but I'm not going to prescribe a particular roof style. I'll let the designers do that. So I have to support staff in denial.
Okay, great. Grant?
Yeah, I don't think I'll say anything that is a lot different. I live in a house with a mansard roof, so I have a soft spot for them. But, unfortunately, that doesn't apply here. I do think, though, the point that was made, you know, in addition to the roof's complexity, was the context of secondary structures and how those can be ornate, especially if it's a bigger primary structure. But the fact that as a secondary structure, that roof form is quite uncommon. So I agree with staff's assessment here as well. I think it's a nice project, and eager to see how it evolves.
I would only add that I support staff, and so I think we're all in agreement there. And the only sort of friendly advice I would give from a design perspective is I agree also with staff that with a one-story cottage, there's not a lot you can do to make it look subordinate and allow them to have an ADU, which they have a right to. So it's always going to perhaps appear more dominant than you'd like, but it doesn't need to be such a standalone jewel like this building appears to be. I mean, it's nicely designed. It would look nice, but it would be out of context, I think. And so, you know, a two-story flat roof, a two-story simple gable, two-story gable intersected by dormers, you know, just some of the ideas where it could be solved and still be compatible with the simple style that's represented on the streetscape. So those are my 2 cents.
All right, thanks, Dave. Yeah, I agree with staff on this one as well, and it was the form. I mean, it is a beautiful design, but I just don't think it's appropriate for that little spot and for that particular street. I did also want to, just for the records, my concern about the stucco. We had a public comment about the stucco and the use of the smooth cementitious siding. So I was a little leery about reading about the stucco myself, so just so that that's on the record. All right, then sounds like we're all in agreement. If I could get a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to deny application number 2024-COA-168 for the ADU at 3134 Champa Street as per design guidelines 4.18, 4.19, 4.20, and 5.17, character defining features for the Curtis Park Historic District presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
All right, thank you. Second?
Second.
George has seconded it. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, thank you very much. The application has been unanimously denied. On to our next design review project. It is number 2024-COA-045. And that's at 975 Grant Street. And 252 East, oh, one second. Yeah, the staff presentation comes first, sorry. 252 East 10th Avenue, Sherman Grant District, and Jesse White is again our staff person.
I made sure the slides are correct this time. Okay, so this is, let me turn on my camera quickly. Okay. So this is 975 Grant Street. It also is under address 252 East 10th Avenue. It was constructed in 1906. It is a contributing building to the Sherman Grant Historic District, as well as being an individual landmark known as the Porterhouse. So this building is located at the corner of Grant Street and East 10th Avenue, as shown on the site map floor plan on the left side of the screen. And on the right side of the screen, you can see the street view from the front, the front and left side of the building. So the landmark inspector, Lauren Gleason, issued a notice of violation on November 15th, 2023 for replacement of windows on the carriage house with vinyl windows. Subsequently, staff received an application requesting to maintain the vinyl windows on the carriage house. Staff is recommending denial of the vinyl windows, citing guideline 2.20. And I'll spend the next few slides going over our findings and our proposal. So historically, the north side of the carriage house had a set of carriage doors that were converted into 4 windows in around the 1970s. You can see the original door configuration, carriage door configuration on the left side of the screen in that 1948 photograph. And again, at some point in the 1970s, those were converted into windows. The 5th window was added to the east wall under the breezeway, which you can't quite see from here. And then the center photos on this image just show the condition of the non-historic windows at the time that they were replaced. So staff isn't arguing that they weren't up for replacement. They were non-historic windows. So we weren't concerned about replacement of those. They were obviously in very poor condition. Staff was more concerned with the material that they were replaced with. And then you can see on that far right side of the screen that you can see the previous layout of those windows. They do have visibility as they face onto East 10th Avenue. So there is quite a bit of visibility for this building and those windows in particular. So they were non-historic 8/8, the true divided light windows. And you can kind of see that. You zoom in really close on the 2019 before replacement photograph. And then pictured here is a north elevation photograph showing the new windows and a close-up showing the typical window replacement. So the divided light pattern does match those non-historic 1970s windows patterns pretty well. However, the windows have internal muttons, which is not supported by our guidelines, specifically guideline 2.20F. In addition to that, the landmark guidelines also list out appropriate replacement materials. For wood windows found historically on the house, appropriate replacement material is typically wood or aluminum clad wood materials. These are vinyl windows and are not supported under guideline 2.20E. So staff do understand that the windows were added to a secondary structure. However, the windows were added to an individual landmark, and those are typically held by this commission to a higher standard. And they do face onto East 10th Avenue or highly visible windows. So staff is recommending denial of the application citing guideline 2.20, specifically E and F.
All right, Jesse, thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Jesse? That doesn't sound like there are questions for you. Thanks, Jesse. Thank you. All right, so applicants? Okay, yeah.
And then before you start our clock, drive this slideshow?
I will do that for you, Bridget.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just let me know when you want the slides.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just have a seat.
And I'm pulling up the timer now as well.
And then before you, or as you begin your 10-minute presentation, just start with your name and address. Please. Is that part of our 10 minutes? Yes. Whenever you're ready.
Hey, I'm Penelope Euchre. I live at 975 Grant Street, and this is. My name is Bridget Rossbach. I'm an architect and a longtime friend of Kenny's.
And your address?
Oh, I'm sorry, 1470 South Elizabeth Street.
Great, thanks.
Oh, you're driving.
Yes.
Okay, so you've seen the photo of our home. We bought this historic home. If I could go back to 1996 and advise myself, I might do something different, but that's what it is. It was called the Herman Munster House. It was in complete disrepair. It was owned by Denver Public Schools. They purchased it to tear it down to expand their parking lot. It was designated by the community and so preserved. And at that time, sorry, I'm nervous about this whole thing.
It's totally okay.
I'm probably not the first person to
Take
be
your time.
nervous.
You're fine.
But I was a teacher in Denver Public Schools and found out that Denver Public Schools was selling it. Very few offers because of the disrepair, and we purchased it. We moved in, try to convert it back to a single family home. It's been a slow process on a teacher salary, and we have a lot of love for this house. Yes, the next slide. So as mentioned on this property, the main house was in disrepair. That 1948 picture, it looks exactly like it does today through a lot of work. We never considered the carriage house to be up to the same standard. We worked with Landmark early on to understand what we could and couldn't do. And the carriage house was a very, it had the windows added. If you can go back to the previous slide again, as you can see in 1948, in that arrow, it was still a garage. And in the 1970s, it was bricked in, and you can see the bricks do not match. It's visually apparent from the street. The windows that were added in the 70s were poor quality. The windows above are original 1906 windows, which are still holding together, but the later edition windows fell apart. Okay, next slide, please. And we had a tenant in the apartment, and she called me and said, "I'm so sorry, I broke your window, it completely fell apart." We were in an emergency situation where we had to repair the window. Capitol Hill is very high crime, as you know. And so we were under pressure to repair this window or replace it. And it never occurred to us these 1970s ugly falling apart windows needed Landmark approval. So for that, I apologize. And so we did replace them with custom windows. We matched it. We put the internal, not the external, which I wasn't aware of for this carriage house 1970s non-historic windows. Next slide, please. And just some background. We found ourselves retired. We're on fixed incomes. These windows in 2021 were about $5,000–6,000 to replace, which for us is a lot that we have to budget for out of other necessary things. Next slide, please. So outside my window in the kitchen, which I've been looking out for almost 30 years, I am hit with hundreds of non-conforming windows, and you can see it's all in the historic Grant Sherman district. We're the only single-family home used as such, but all the apartment buildings from the 20s, 30s, 40s, I just walked around within one block, and there are 1,000 windows. These are some close-ups that are exactly like ours. They're vinyl, and you can see the wood frames and have the internal buttons. Next slide, please. We have a lot of vandalism. We have a lot of graffiti, which upsets me to see this sort of thing for historic homes. We have no air conditioning. We have a 70-year-old boiler, which needs a lot of work. As you would imagine, we say a prayer each season. $2,000 a month is not unusual for our heating bill. Next slide, please. We're troubled why we're here. Excise license denied our source of income, which was a Airbnb in what we considered an ADU. The city attorney said it's a separate structure. It doesn't belong to the main structure. And because we live in the main structure, the secondary structure does not qualify to be Airbnb, and so it was denied. And not only did they not stop there, they have reported us to every agency they can think of. It's one particular woman who, having been a public school teacher, worries me that she has a target. She's reported us to every agency she can think of for every reason, and that's why we're here. Next slide, please.
Hi, my name is Bridget Rossbach. Again, I'm an architect and a longtime friend of Penny's. So as you've seen here on the site plan showing the carriage house and the main house, and then a partial floor plan showing the 5 windows in questions, 4 facing north to 10th Avenue and 1 in the breezeway. Next slide, please. Again, as you've seen here, so these are some Google captures of earlier years showing the windows prior to replacement, and then an image of the window when it was sort of cobbled together right after it literally fell apart prior to the replacement. Next slide. On the left, you see a picture of the window we're talking about, breezeway. This window appears to have been sort of just cut into the wall of the carriage house and a non-traditional sill put in place. Just wanted to point out that this cut into the wall was done prior to the Euchre's ownership. Then on the right, you'll see a slide of the carriage house from 10th Avenue. And as an architect, I would say that it's very difficult to tell the difference between the lower windows and the upper windows from the street. The width of the frames is quite approximate. And although the muttons are interior to the glazing, there is a sense of that. Next slide, please. So once again, these are sort of close-ups of the replaced windows. And then the next slide again, please. So on the left, again, I'm trying to point out that, you know, in terms of width of the frame of the replaced windows and the portion of the previous window that was retained, there was a wood framing that was retained, and then the vinyl set into it. It is a very approximate width in proportion to the windows above. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Sorry, Bridget. So a close-up of that, once again, showing the, you know, some portion of the wood was retained to retain the sense of the trim around these windows as it meets the brick, and also to not cut into the brick and risk further damage. The brick sill was retained, and then the vinyl window put in. Every effort was made to respect the historic structure, but within a limited budget. It's not part of the slideshow, but in the last week, we've reached out to Pella Windows to see what it would cost to actually replace these windows again with a wood window. And we received a price of $28,964.58 to replace these 5 windows with a wood window. So in my opinion, that from the street for a secondary structure, these provide a very similar image to the original windows above. They are not the historic, the original historic windows of the structure. And the cost to replace these is, would be quite burdensome. Next slide, please. Again, also the carriage houses are noted as not being held to the same standards by Landmark. And that the city attorney has also determined that this structure is not part of the main house. Next slide, please. So the request basically is to allow the retention of these windows based on these following 5 points.
Yeah, you're out of time. I'm sorry. It's okay. Okay, thanks. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicants? Doesn't look like it. No questions. All right, thank you. Jesse, did you have any? Public comment, sorry.
Yes, I do
Although
have.
there's no one here, so.
There's no one
just
here.
to make
Okay,
sure,
so-
are you here to speak?
Okay, great. All right, so
So
Jesse,
just-
yeah.
Just wanted to follow up on a couple of things. Of course, the commission does not take costs into consideration. I totally understand, like, this wasn't, a violation that was done knowingly or to go against Landmark, the Landmark Commission. But did want to follow up and offer resources to the applicant. We have a tax credit program that can be used for qualified costs, and it's up to 25% of all qualified costs, which could include a lot of the restoration work that you're doing on this structure. I would also note, in this case, where we've had, violations in the past for window replacement, we've also offered an extended timeline for replacement so that those costs are not all falling on you at once. You can have, we've done up to 24 months to bring a building back into compliance. So just wanted to offer those two areas of relief that Landmark does provide for violation projects and potential tax credits.
Jesse, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any other questions for Jesse?
It seems to me that a period of significance would have some relevance here relative to the Landmark building itself and the district. Do we know what that is?
I read the application for the individual landmark. It doesn't have, to my knowledge, doesn't have a period of significance. It's an early individual landmark application. So it's kind of sparse and not at the same standards as how we review individual landmark designations today. And I believe the period of significance for Sherman Grant is on the staff report. So apologies, I don't remember it off the top of my head.
Related to that, the carriage house itself, is that indicated whether it is or isn't?
It doesn't talk about the carriage house specifically. I looked for that, but that carriage house is part of the site and was original to the site. And has visibility. It is also attached by a roof line. I don't know, like their comments on city attorney making a determination or zoning making a determination. I do know from a landmark perspective, there is a connecting breezeway to the primary structure. So this is attached by a roof line to that primary structure and is visible from 10th Street and Grant. So.
The period of significance, as I just looked it up for the Sherman Grant Historic District, is prior to and including 1959. And as Jesse said, we don't look at use, so we wouldn't really be involved in the Airbnb issues or anything like that. What we're looking at more is particularly with secondary structures on individual landmark sites, how they contribute to the overall understanding of the site.
Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, great. Thank you, Jesse. Thanks for everything. All right, are there let's see. No, there weren't any public comments, so, commissioners, let's go ahead and go into deliberation
Okay.
then. Yeah, George.
Well, thankfully, our purview does not include financial and business impacts. What we do consider, however, is that not only is this a contributing house in the district, this is an individual landmark. And we have often said collectively that individual landmarks have a higher standard to meet as far as the appropriateness. What I sympathize with the owners but the only thing I might add, in addition to Jesse's suggestions of tax rebates and additional time extension, the windows cannot be vinyl windows, end of story. However, I think that we could allow the owner to maybe replace each window with a historically correct window on an as needed basis. So if you got one that's falling completely apart, replace it to meet the guidelines. If there's others that aren't falling apart, save up and do those later. But that would meet the extended guideline, I don't think, but I don't think it's also, it's unfortunate, but you know, when you're in the landlord business for a business and you buy the property during the time that it's been designated, then you should know. So we can extend them extra time, but the windows can't stay vinyl.
So George, let's get a clarification.
Okay.
for the extension of time. Jesse?
I
Was
just
it-
wanted to note, the as needed basis, like once they fall apart, like that's not something the city would allow. These are non-compliant, under the current guidelines. And the commission is making a determination on this today. They will remain non-compliant until either the commission approves what's in place, or if they are replaced with appropriate materials that the
So-
commission approves. So we can't extend it out like 20 years until the windows fall apart.
Okay, is there a way to say the commission is well aware of the non-compliance? We are taking measures, i.e. an inspection or some such, whenever a window is replaced, or are they gonna have to do them all at once?
So the windows in question are the 5 windows. We're not looking at any other windows on this house at this time. And they are in violation of the current guidelines. Our ordinance allows our approvals to be valid for a 3-year period. And that is about as much as we can do in terms of extending deadlines is
Okay.
within the 3-year period that our approval is valid.
And the most that we've done in the past is 24 months to do replacement. And they can space the replacement out over that 24-month period.
Is this the first time this has been brought up to the commission?
No.
This is not the first time.
First time for this.
So
house.
the first time for this property is
Okay.
not the first time
Okay.
for
The first time
vinyl.
we've
Oh, no,
seen
no, this
issue, yeah.
property, okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
this
Well, I just wanna see what the clock, was left on the clock there for
Oh.
these people, so,
It's just beginning.
okay.
I guess I would argue the counterpoint. I would be inclined to support the applicant, not for any financial reasons, but because of what the condition they inherited. This isn't an original condition that goes back to when the historic district was in its formative phase. The demolition of the 2 garage doors, the insertion of 4 windows. You know, to me, the argument rings true that made by the architect in supporting the applicant. That it's very difficult to discern a difference between the lower and the upper windows. I appreciate the applicant and their commitment to this property and the mission of preservation and the huge personal sacrifices that are associated with that. And I think that this is a small consolation for this commission to make to allow these windows to stay and not require them to be replaced. It is a carriage house. And there's parking that is between the windows themselves and the street. For all those reasons, I can find a way to approve this as installed.
Okay, Nick, thank you. Graham, Larry?
This is the worst part.
Yeah.
Being on the commission.
It is.
Nick, I agree with what you
Easily.
just said.
Yeah.
I think in I guess appraisal of the situation, right? The question that I would have, and perhaps for Nate, since he's here, is, guideline 2.20 and letter F specifically says that buttons between panes of glass not allowed. And I just know that in the past, in the 5 years I've been on the commission, that we've never made an exception for concrete language like that. And not disagreeing at all, again, with the fact that if this was done in 1960, it's outside of the period of
Right.
significance,
Yeah,
and we don't know that.
Yeah, I guess to counter that again, I mean, you could just reglaze the top portions of those and remove the buttons from between the glass, and there'd still be material compliance with the design intent. So, I mean, it's hard to impose from my perspective. These guidelines ultimately are fungible, and I think we should start to acknowledge the fact that they're going to change, right? And so to continue to burden somebody with, and I'm aware of the precedent, but in this instance, I think it's easy to defend as not a precedent-setting situation.
But, and that's why I wanted to ask the
Yeah.
question.
But I have
is to
some,
say
I
that-
have some clarification.
Yeah,
If you're deviating from the guidelines, you need to look at intent statements for this and see if they support that deviation from the guidelines. So for this particular project, the intent statements would be 2G, 2H, and 2I, which are on page 28 of the guidelines. 2G says to maintain the pattern and location of original window and door openings to preserve the appearance of the historic facade and functional relationship of the building to the street. 2H says to preserve original windows and doors and their materials because they relate to the significance of a historic structure. 2I is to enhance the energy efficiency of original windows and doors, which is often more energy efficient and less expensive than replacement. So those are the intent statements for the window section. In terms of interior muttons, that is something we have not allowed. And I can speak very specifically on a project that is an individual landmark at 14th and Josephine, which has a non-contributing auditorium addition. They installed internal muttons on those windows. We did not allow those internal muttons. They had to correct it by applying muttons to the glazing. It is incredibly difficult to actually reglaze these types of windows. So that's usually not the approach that is taken, but you can apply muttons to the exterior to make it have the appearance of a more true divided light. However, that also has the drawback of making that window not operable in some instances. I don't know about this specific instance, but that was a big issue with the Josephine property, is that applying those muttons would potentially make them non-operable. So just some context there.
Brittany, that's helpful, I think, actually, because in the context of those intent statements then, and building on what Nick said, these were not original locations. They're not original windows.
Right.
They never were. And I think too, if it's been acceptable to the staff and it's been approved in the past, if we're talking precedent, that doing something as simple as adding some sort of geometry to create a muntin, even on the outside of these windows, shouldn't affect the interior. Because it's either a single or double hung, but that's gonna be on the upper exterior of the sash, which won't interfere. You know, so at that point then, again, my biggest concern, Nick, agreeing with what you said and the sentiment of the commission here today, knowing we're a small group too, right? It would be nice to resolve this, but we all five need to agree. in
Yeah,
order to resolve
exactly.
this. That, you know, perhaps is a solution similar to what Brittany has explained makes more sense here. Just a very simple architectural surface applied muntin that would match that, because I agree too. I think that from 10th driving down, you're gonna see a very similar color on a window that's the same opening that it was in. So, you know, clarify from earlier, I'm not advocating for a very black and white approach here. I think it's not a black and white situation, but I appreciate that context. And I think that helps me to justify even further the approach that you suggested.
Hey, Larry.
Yeah, I think I kind of struggle with being overly lenient, I guess, in this situation, because we've got kind of two aspects of this replacement that are, you know, materially in contradiction to the guidelines, which, you know, which we've discussed being very important. Like George said, you know, them being vinyl, that inherently, even if we can apply muntins to the exterior of the glazing, they'll still be vinyl windows. And then, you know, and they face 10th. They're not, you know, like it's not an interior
Not an
side view or alley facing view. And yeah, and they have internal muntins. So we've got those aspects of it. And then on top of that, it was something where, intentional or not, the applicants replaced the windows without having them reviewed by Landmark. So I guess I just don't see within our purview of, you know, looking at how does what they're proposing meet the guidelines. I just struggle to see how I could create, you know, either via the specific guidelines we're talking about here or the intent statements. I don't see a clear path to supporting the applicants in this.
So Larry, I actually agree with you. I agree with you. I agree with it. And Graham's right. This is the thing that is the hardest about what we do. But I'm with you. There's still, no matter what we do, there's still vinyl, and that's.
Can I ask one more hair
Graham.
splitting clarifying
Well,
question?
sure, why not?
Jesse, in the district, not for the individual landmark, if I'm understanding right. Is that, I mean, we've gotten into contributing versus non-contributing garages and carriage houses. And I know that the physical attachment here, you know, is unique because that creates one sort of continuous structure. But in your research and in working through, is there any specifics, you know, that would bring that to in the Sherman Grant Historic District? Is it stated specifically that carriage houses aren't included or
It does
excluded?
not state that they are or are not included, but if you were to say that this is a non-contributing structure, then you would need to review it under the secondary, chapter 4, the secondary structure. And even there, it talks about using materials that are appropriate, vinyl not being one of them. I think for modern or new ADU structures, we've allowed like fiberglass composite type windows. But, you know, not, since I have been with the commission, and I'm sure Brittany and other members of staff have been with the commission, we've never approved the use of vinyl.
Sure. Well, so I guess my question then for Brittany is, in the example that you mentioned, how long ago was that? And I don't recall it coming before the commission.
I resolved it.
Well done.
Behind the scenes, but it took about 3 years to resolve.
Well, and so were those vinyl windows, or were they windows that otherwise met the guidelines but didn't meet the muntin pattern?
Correct.
Which I guess, so they were wood, they were clad windows.
They are clad windows.
Okay. We
And
could.
they're actually sliders. But George approved that operation style.
From understanding that that's before guideline changes. And,
Right.
you know, it's even Pella and the windows that Pella quoted. A divided light on a modern window with a spacer bar is a piece of aluminum stuck on the face of the glass.
It is.
It's not a wood muntin. It's not an integral divided light. I was just reaching for other parts and pieces that
Sure.
continue to justify that.
Sure.
I mean, I think that, you know, part of my concern, and maybe this is the Nate question, is for every 100 instances of this we've seen in the past where windows have had to be replaced that were improperly installed, if it would require an exceptional justification in this case for that not to be something that comes up in the future. Is that right? I mean, I think that's where we're at, is looking at black and white language in a not black and white situation. Understanding that the decision that the five of us may come to today, you know, is in a long line of decisions made by many other groups of similar commissioners, and will certainly be reflected again in, you know, future instances. I don't know if that helps or hurts. That probably hurts this conversation.
Is the question whether you're giving a deviation in like a 1/100?
Yeah, I mean, I think the question would be that, you know, based on like what Nick said, and if we were to take the intent statements, as Brittany reminded us of, that really specifically talk about original patterns, original materials, original windows, we can easily justify that these windows are none of those things. It's not an original location, it's not original material, it's likely not historic, based on even the period of significance. But the thing that we can't justify is that the windows are not architecturally wood clad and they're not true divided light or simulated divided light, which is specifically stated in the guidelines. So is there a point where an intent statement would override specific language in a guideline?
I think what I worry about the path that you're going down, Graham, is that by that logic, why couldn't they have installed like slider windows or, you know, some completely different operation that was, you know, because since this wasn't original to the structure, it's like, does it just open up the floodgates for anything to be done within those openings? And yeah, I would say that's not what we would want to suggest.
So,
I mean, I think what makes it harder for me still, and maybe getting to the root of Nick's sequence of logic too, is that in every case except for the physical material at this point, you know, even guideline 2.16, which talks about preserving the historic ones, I mean, it specifically mentions muntins, mullions, you know, the patterns, which are there, they're just not there in the full capacity. So I think the sliders would be a slam dunk. Sorry, that doesn't work here, right? Versus, you know, whatever little bit we're beyond that line of, you know, hey, these were replaced in good faith of matching an original. They're not white, they're not sliders, they're not, you know, casements, they're, I don't know, I'm just playing.
Yeah.
devil's advocate on the
Well, that's, I
back.
guess, maybe where I'm a little bit like, yeah, my comment about the, you know, doing this without going to Landmark in the first place is that if we take the position of, well, you know, they basically tried to make this historically compatible in what way they felt appropriate, and we can look at it and go, it's not unreasonable, even though it's in clear violation of guidelines, then to me that also opens up the potential that anybody can just take it upon themselves to, you know, do something and then come ask for, you know, forgiveness after the fact and say, well, it would be so expensive to, you know, redo this. And I don't like the precedent that would set.
But, I mean, they'd be taking the risk, right?
And that's essentially what's happened here.
Yeah.
It took a
And
risk.
in this case, I guess
Yeah.
my argument would be that that they weren't wrong.
They weren't wrong?
It wasn't the approach though to ask for.
No, you know what?
Sorry, we
Yeah,
can't
I'm
have that
sorry,
time.
your presentation is over. We're
I
deliberating
think maybe then the root
deliberation.
of the question is the training that we've all had as commissioners, the research and the work that staff does for every project that we look at. We're sitting here as 5 commissioners who clearly see one black and white rule that we haven't ever deflected from.
Right.
But we're seeing reasons based on the guidelines, based on the context, based on very specific characteristics of these very 5 specific windows, right? You know, if these were the 3 original windows that were in the hipped gable, or if it was 2 windows on either side of the front door of the house. I mean, I'm perpetuating Nick's logic here, but you know, Nate, would we be, in your legal opinion, acting outside of our purview to, I mean, have we made the case so clear in this deliberation that these windows do not meet the guidelines, cannot be approved based on a strictly legal interpretation? Or have we created enough of a justification, as Brittany alluded to, you know, again, knowing that as commissioners we're split, so that, but I guess if we were to create a motion as a commission that was in direct violation of a city ordinance, that's not what we're here to do. And I know we're not trying to do that, but it feels like we're on the edge of saying either we justify this or not. Not being a legal expert, is your opinion that we're flirting with an edge we shouldn't be on? Can I ask that question? Am I allowed?
You just did.
I did, yeah.
So.
I know Adam's reminded us a few times, you can't do
Yeah.
that. So.
Yeah, and in this case, though, you're applying the guidelines, right, as you interpret them. And they are, there is some flexibility allowed there. They're applied on a case-by-case basis. And you can make a justification if you interpret those intent statements to allow for that deviation. So it's within your purview. I don't mean to punt this back to you,
No,
but
that's-
it's your call.
Certainly, understood.
Yeah, it's a good discussion, but in the end, I think we're gonna be split.
Right.
It's unfortunate for the applicant, but that's what's gonna happen.
So what happens if we are split?
So if you do not reach quorum, which is all of you today, it's 5 to pass the motion. Status quo is maintained. Because this is a violation, the applicant would have to come back at a later date for this project because it would need some resolution from the commission to move forward, as it's not something we as staff could administratively approve unless the applicant decides to go with a material that is recommended by the guidelines, use mullions, muttons that are recommended by the guidelines. So you can make a motion that you know will fail, or you could continue to a date certain. The only issue with that is you have to stay at a date certain, and we don't know exactly what attendance looks like. If you make a motion that fails and status quo is maintained, the applicant can come back at any time. So those are basically the 2 options.
And I would just add in really quickly, staff would not move forward with any additional fines or anything of that nature while this is still in the commission's hands for review. So just wanted to put that out there for the applicants.
What
Okay,
happens if we split a vote in perpetuity?
well, but here's just for the applicants, you know, we generally have how many people here? We
Up to
are
9, right? Yeah,
right
this is a
at
small
quorum
group.
right now. So if we split the vote today and which reverts back to the status quo, next time we very well may have a full room and have a different result for the application. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's probably the best approach.
I would entertain a motion from said commissioners. Somebody,
Well, the
like-
easiest motion is probably staff's motion.
yeah, probably.
It's not a motion that, I mean, I can make a motion. and not vote
You
for
can
it,
make
right?
it.
You can make it and not agree with
You
it.
should, likely agree with the motion you're making, but
It's
you are
just-
still.
This even
rule.
longer.
That's more of a guideline than a rule.
Do you wanna
You're
make the
still
motion? I don't
welcome.
mind making the
Let's let
motion.
Larry
Larry's
make
gonna make the motion.
Yeah.
Don't
George can
worry.
second, Julie. can second.
I can't second it. I'm good.
I'm not
I
allowed
guess
to
I
tell you
probably
how to
could.
vote, sorry.
Okay, Larry.
Okay. Madam Chair, I move to deny application number 2023-COA-045 for the replacement of non-historic windows at 975 Grant Street /252 East 10th Avenue as per design guidelines 2.20.E, 2.20.F, character defining features for the Sherman Grant Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
George has seconded it. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Can we do a hand raise?
Let's do a hand raise. So that's 3. Opposed, nay?
Nay.
2 opposed. Thanks, Jesse.
Okay, so the motion has failed. Status quo has maintained as we won't reach quorum on this issue today. We'll, unfortunately, you'll need to return at a later date when we have hopefully all 9 of our commissioners present.
Thank you.
I will be in touch.
Yeah, I know. All right, we have one more design review project. It is 2024-COA-169 at 3339 West 31st Avenue in the Allen M. Ghost District. And Jesse is our staff person. This is your lucky day, Jesse.
Overworked.
It's usually Brittany this one
Yeah,
afternoon.
usually the Brittany show
Yeah.
or the Crystal show.
Yeah.
And when Abby was doing design review, it was the Abby.
It's the Abby show, it's Thursday, yeah.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Okay, so now we're moving on to 339 West 31st Avenue. It was a house that was constructed in 1887 and is a contributing story and a half structure in the Allen M. Ghost Historic District. So the house is a simple Queen Anne style cottage that has 2 large gable dormer additions and 1 story rear additions. These are non-historic to the structure. On December 5th, 2023, the commission reviewed a proposal for a pop-top addition on the main roof of the structure. And they felt that the proposed pop-top addition significantly altered the character of the historic home and denied that proposal. So the applicant has significantly revised their application based on commission deliberation and is now proposing a pop-top to add a pop-top addition on the non-historic addition on the back of the house. Staff is recommending conditional approval of this application citing guidelines 2.20 and 3.2 through 3.11. And I'll spend the next few slides going over our findings for that. So pictured here are the proposed demolition drawings. The hatched areas are on the non-historic portions of the roof, as well as a portion of the historic roof. Our calculations only require that we record the non-historic, or excuse me, the historic portions that will be demolished. So they're demolishing a significantly small amount of historic material on this house, roughly 3.5% of the historic roof and roughly 16% of the historic wall on the back of the house. The applicant has chosen to push this addition into the rear, onto the rear non-historic addition as a means of lessening the impact visually and lessening the impact on the historic structure itself. So pictured here is the proposed roof plan and elevations for the new addition. The new pop-top addition will be 22 feet by 18 feet 4 inches and will be approximately 10 feet 8 inches in height. The addition will have simple boxy form that is situated over that 1-story non-historic addition, and it cantilevers out onto the west side of the building. The pop top addition will have a flat roof clad in membrane roofing, and the walls will be clad in 3-coat stucco, as well as a slatted red cedar screening material on the northeast, northwest corners of the north elevation. The addition will have aluminum clad wood casement and double hung windows with tall narrow proportions, similar to those found on the primary structure. The cantilever side of the addition is supported by square metal columns. The applicant selected a flat roof form, in this case to minimize the height of this addition. They wanted to make this as least visible as possible because this is on a quite wide lot. So there will be some visibility. The applicants also chose to build a structure that is very modern in appearance, so that it is recognizable as a modern addition without competing with that primary structure. Staff did have concerns over the connection of the new roof to the historic roof, but ultimately we felt that the applicant had taken all necessary steps to minimize the impact of the addition on the historic structure within the constraints of the historic pitch roof, head height requirements and square footage needs for this addition, and really couldn't see a better way to attach this addition without overly complicating the footprint and roof form of this addition. In order to reduce the impact of the addition on the historic structure, the applicants felt it necessary to place the addition on that 1-story non-historic addition, and that has put the majority of that addition inside or outside of the bulk plane. So the addition pierces the bulk plane in the rear 35% of the lot and exceeds the height in the rear 35% of the lot. The applicant is requesting zoning relief for this addition. The commission may recommend an administrative adjustment if they feel that conformance with the zoning code would have an adverse impact on the historic character of the building. In this case, staff feel that the applicant has chosen a design that reduces the negative impact to the historic building and has selected a simple modern design that blends in with the surrounding context without competing with that primary structure. Finally, the applicant is proposing to install 2 new window openings on the north elevation. Window A will be a horizontal fixed window and window B will be a double hung window. The applicant will be removing paired windows on the west elevation and adding half-light fiberglass doors with side lights and a transom window. The applicant will also be converting a door and side light into double hung window and converting a window into a half-light fiberglass door. The only alterations to the windows on the historic building will be windows A on the back of the house, and the rest are on non-historic additions. In addition to those, the half-light door with the side lights are going to be adding in a patio or a deck and stairs, excuse me. The stair will be concrete and will have a wood railing with square posts and a balustrade. And these are all situated under that cantilevered portion of the addition and tucked in behind the house. And then here's just a section drawing so you can better understand how this connects into the back of the house and what that layout looks like somewhat. While we're on this page, we typically do get a section drawing showing the inset of windows. Our guidelines do require that there be a minimum of a 2-inch inset to the lower sash on double hung windows. And I believe it's less than that for casement windows. Brittany might be able to clarify on that. But staff would need to see a section drawing showing that inset is not currently included in the application. So we're requesting that per guideline 3.7. And then final slide here. These are 3-dimensional renderings of the proposed addition. Staff is recommending conditional approval of the application with the following comments. The addition maintains open space patterns, guideline 3.2. The addition is minimal in scale and massing, implementing a flat roof to minimize the height, and it's placed over a non-historic addition, reducing the negative impact on the historic structure. Guidelines 3.3, 3.5, 3.9, and 3.11. The addition features a modern design, allowing it to be recognizable as modern construction. It uses traditional materials, window proportions, and roof forms to help tie it into the context. Guidelines 3.4, 3.6, 3.7, 3.8, and 3.10. The applicant does need to provide section drawings showing minimum inset of 2 inches for the windows, and we're citing guideline 3.7 on that. And staff would also say that we are supportive of the request for an administrative adjustment, citing section 12.4.5.2.b of the Denver zoning code.
Okay, great, Jesse. Commissioners, any questions for Jesse? Okay, great, thanks, Jesse. All right, applicant?
Do you need public comment or is it public first?
No, this is for the applicant.
Okay, good.
Yeah. This is the applicant.
Sorry, I'm pulling up the timer. It somehow closed on me.
Oops.
So 1 second.
So you probably know the routine, but when she just gets that up there and we can start timing you your name and address for our records.
Perfect.
And then you'll have 10 minutes to tell us about your project.
Yeah, I apologize for missing the meeting, but
Oh,
I'll do
he's
my best.
probably just fine. He doesn't mind.
he's
missing
happy
me.
for me to do
I
it.
bet he is. I bet he is. Hang on just a second. Okay. Oh, there you go. All right,
Whenever
anytime.
you are ready. Hey everyone, I'm Alexa Hunter, homeowner, co-homeowner at 3339 West 31st Avenue.
And Bill Parker, I'm the architect. My address is 6041 West Pacific Circle, Lakewood.
Thank you all for being here, and thank you, Jesse, for all the support on this project. I know this is our second time here, so I'm just gonna give a brief reminder for context here. We absolutely love this house, love our neighborhood, can't imagine living anywhere else. But due to the steep roof form, the simplistic, the upstairs is very tight and tough to deal with modern standards. We would love to have our elderly parents move in with us, but that means that my husband and I need to relocate from our first floor bedroom. So we are trying to make this layout work for us to have a space upstairs for my husband and I to relocate to. We were trying, our house has a very large setback compared to most of the street. We're about 35 feet, where the average on the street is 20 to 25. So we were originally trying to put the pop top on the original home to avoid being in the rear bulk plan. But obviously, as we pointed out before, I think there's a slide showing the demolition plan from the rear. This house has been amended prior to our ownership multiple times, rendering it somewhat distinct from its original form. So from our review of the historic and work with Jesse and comments from this, what we were really trying to do was separate the garage from the historic home in addition to fitting kind of our needs into this. Because I know that kind of Christmas tree roof plan was really unappealing from this board as well, especially the way it tied into the historic home. So in addition to using this addition to suit our needs for the home, we were also using it as a way to kind of separate the older non-compliant additions from the historic home as well. Otherwise, yeah, we're just excited to be in our historic neighborhood and really hoping to make this home work for our modern family.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
My name is Bill, and we worked close with Jesse and her staff over the last 4 months, trying to come up with a new solution. Instead of building on the existing roof and touching the historic structure, it was recommended that we create a more modern addition and push it onto the non-historic part of the property, so as to have a clear distinction between the two homes, well, this one home, sorry, between the two pieces of the home. And so we've come up with a simplistic box shape modern addition with more modern materials, modern metal fascia to match the windows. All of the windows we've made the same proportion as the existing home. We've also really tried to we took off several of the windows that we were working on before that were touching the existing home or being removed in the existing home. The only two new windows we're adding that are in the existing home, you can see in the bottom right picture there, which is the double hung window in the main floor primary suite and the overhead window. And the rest are all in the non-historic portion of the home. Anything that's visible from the street, we've left intact. And we're looking for your support in this revised addition here.
Yeah, and I guess, sorry, just, oh, no problem.
We have also submitted the new documents with the 2-inch offset.
Okay.
Apologize for that being late, and we'll get those amended.
Okay, yeah, so I think Jesse has those if it is approved with condition. And I think Jesse has mentioned there were a lot of considerations that went into this addition. One being neighboring homeowners, in city lots, they are narrow, so we were trying to minimize the impact on our neighbor and did not want to build back the whole way over the garage, which does give us this cantilever design. The cantilever design also allowed us to center the addition on the original gable to hide it as much as possible from the street. So considerations as to tying that in, impact on the neighbor, and as well as minimizing the variance needed so that we weren't pushing further and further back on this lot.
Yeah, and one of the other, talking with the zoning board, by pushing the addition back here, not only do we create the rear bulk plane violation, we would also have created an open space violation, which we've centered the addition in a way that we don't have an open space violation on this. So we're only requesting the one, we would only be requesting the rear bulk plane violation from them.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for our applicants?
Just a quick question on the columns that support the cantilevered structure, or well, the column support structure. What is the proposed material for that? I don't think it's material to my review.
Right, some metal, similar metal to the, match the windows and the metal fascia of the, we're proposing a membrane roof that would have a drip edge and then a metal fascia to match the windows and the columns, so.
Got it. And then the other materials are, you have photographs, right? Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Hopefully it's answered your questions since I ended my time, but
No, you're fine now. You don't have to worry about time now. You can breathe now.
The non-historic home is already stucco, which is so why we proposed that to try to tie it into the structure while maintaining its modern character.
Yep.
Okay.
Clarifying question about the columns are, when you're saying that that would be a metal to match the windows, are they structural steel or are you talking about like wood wrap?
There'll be like a 8-inch diameter post that will be structural to the cantilever. I don't think we have enough leverage on the existing structure to cantilever the entire home without the columns.
Yeah.
And that might look kind of awkward, but I have provided like a box beam design in the ceiling of that patio area to give it more of a look that it belongs there. It's not just 2 sticks holding up the box. So from underneath, I don't have a picture, I apologize, that it will give the appearance of having a box beam that will be structurally supported.
Okay, I guess my more question was whether, and I guess this isn't really that important, but whether they would be wood posts that you're wrapping with like a pre-finished metal, or are they steel that you're painting to match? Got it, okay, thank you. No
And you
worries.
can add that in as a condition if you want that material included in the application.
Okay.
That's not something we're happy to work with, so.
Yeah.
please let us know.
Okay, sure.
One, you know.
Any other questions for the applicants? Doesn't look like it. Okay,
Thank you.
great. You can go back. Yeah, thank you very much. Do we have any, we don't have any public comments? We don't have anybody? that would-
Beyond staff.
No, we're good. Nope.
Of some variation.
Okay, all right. Terrific then. Jesse, did you have any additional comments?
No, we just worked really closely with these applicants after that first denial. I mean, I believe Ann said it in the last meeting that this is a really tricky site, that there's, she didn't envy their, the constraints that they were under, and they've done a good job trying to work within the guidelines and ask for zoning relief where they can to make this better fit the context and be sympathetic to that primary structure.
Thanks, Jesse. Commissioners, anything for Jesse? Okay, great. Then let's just go ahead into deliberation. What are your thoughts?
Generally, I support staff. I think it's a reasonable solution to a difficult problem, and I'm anxious to see it.
I think in the context of today, there are not vinyl windows, and it's
Yeah.
that's subordinate, and in the back, it's an adjoining, so if we look at it in the context of the agenda, but no, I agree. I think the only thing is being almost wholly in that rear 35%, but the existing house in addition, even though it's lower, still ties all the way back to the alley. So
Yeah.
I think that we'll need to add, that's a part of the motion we need to add, right? If we're gonna do the adjustment. in the floor
Recommend.
plan,
It should,
recommend.
it's in there.
It's in
Is it
there.
written in there?
It's part of the
Yeah,
motion.
yeah, it's in there. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
so
in
I'd agree, I think.
there. Okay, George.
I like leaving the hair splitting to the zoning people, so yeah, I think it's a good answer to all the different needs and restrictions involved. And I can support staff on this one.
Larry?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it is somewhat of a surprising solution, but seeing the views of it from the street, I think that it has a very low-key appearance from where it matters. And yeah, I mean, I support it.
Okay, great. Do I hear a motion?
Madam Chair, I will make a motion to approve with conditions application 2024-COA-169 for the pop top addition and windows at 3339 West 31st Avenue per design guidelines 2.20, 3.2 through 3.11, character defining features for the Allen M. Post Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report with the following conditions: that the applicant include a drawing showing the windows inset into the wall, which we understand has been done. I also move that the Landmark Preservation Commission find conforming with the zoning standard for height and bulk plane would have an adverse impact on the historic character of the Allen M. Ghost District for the proposed pop top addition per section 12.4.5.2B of the Denver zoning code for application 2024-COA-169 at 3339 West 31st Avenue.
Graham, thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Nick has seconded it. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, we got to approve one today.
Thank you all so much.
Good luck. Good luck with this.
Oh my
Good luck
gosh,
with
good
the project. Yeah.
Thanks. No, thank you, Jesse, so much.
Jesse's awesome. All right. Do we have any business items?
We do not have any business items.
Do we have any discussion items?
No, we do not.
We do not have any
No
discussion.
discussion.
All righty, anything else for the good of the order today then? Nope. All right, it is, oh golly, it's 2:47. I'm calling the meeting to a close. Thank you, everybody. This is